So now we move on to large crevicing. With large crevicing, the principles are pretty much all the same. The difference is mostly in how you finish out the hole and how you process the dirt. For one thing, since we have a lot more dirt to work in, we're not going to be worrying about a scoop for right now. We're just going to move the big rocks first, like before, someplace we've already worked or don't plan to work. Now I've looked down here with my viewer, and I can see the bedrock runs right along here, curves over here, and then comes back here. So I'm looking at a pit that's probably no more than about a foot deep and about 1.5 feet wide, and about 3 feet long. So I'm loosening up the stuff on top so I can pull it out easier, grabbing the big rocks, throwing them away. And anything smaller than, say, the size of your fist, I leave in there. And now, take my bucket, fill my classifying bucket up, and set up against some rocks so it doesn't blow away. And then just start scooping with a 2-gallon bucket. And we go in full, dump it, classify it, better yet, have somebody else do it. And continue that process until you get to the bottom of the hole. So this is the crack we were working on last night. And we got down here and we didn't see as much gold as we thought we would going down. And now that we get down here, you can see why. See, this bedrock here is fractured. And that means that someone has been here before us, because as you see, this bedrock should look like that, all kind of weathered. But when it comes down here, it gets broken. And that means someone's been here before us with a crowbar, and they've cleaned out this hole and they've done a good job of it. This is not necessarily true in every river, because I have worked in rivers where even when somebody's been breaking it before, you still find gold down there. But here, I have exhaustively worked this area, and so I know exactly what's down there because I've worked in this kind of a crevice many times. And I'm not going to find much gold in the bottom. Just to prove that, now that I'm down this far, I may as well sweep around a little bit with my scoop and see if I can see any gold sitting on the bottom. And there will probably be a few flakes, but that's not enough to warrant the amount of work it's going to take to get this cleaned out properly. Scrape that around on the bottom. You should start seeing some flakes appear here on the bottom as you move this past, and I'm not seeing anything. Up here on the wall, see this crevice here. That's a good place to catch gold. And you see there is a little piece right there. Move around your finger until it comes back again. Learning how to work this gold gently and not knock the gold off and get everything else out of the way is a little bit of a challenge. But there's some gold down there. But it's not going to pay for itself. It's going to take more gold than this to justify working here. And so we're going to skip this and go someplace else. Now yes, it is possible that since this guy worked it, a big nugget came down and rolled down in this crevice and got stuck there. But working here, hoping for that, is kind of like trying to fill an inside straight in poker. It could happen, and when it does happen, it pays off nicely. But continuously doing it, in the long run, you're going to wind up losing. You're better off just going to some place that's easier to work, has more gold, and making a profit that way. So I worked up here the other day. So I worked this crack out the other day, and it paid me very well. I'll give you a view of it down here. I probably got close to 2 grams out of this crevice, and as you can see, this has been well weathered and hasn't been cracked much. This cracking here I actually did myself. And so when I got down to the bottom here, I probably got close to 2 grams out of this crack. Now, the thing is, I worked this crack, and I got maybe a quarter of that. I worked this crack over here and got very little as well. Part of finding gold is going places that other people have not already found gold, or haven't found it recently. For whatever reason, the people who worked around here didn't hit this spot. They hit this spot, maybe, or maybe this just didn't catch quite as much gold. They definitely hit this spot over here and this spot over here, because if you come down here and look, you can see here it's all smooth, but as you get over here and look down over this edge, you can see broken pieces of bedrock. And this is because someone was here before us and broke this off and cleaned this hole out. And I did get some gold out of there. And it wasn't even that bad. I mean, maybe if I worked all day, I'd get 1 gram a day. But I'm actually looking for better than that. 1 gram a day is a low average for me. I want more than that if I'm going to be working out here. So, I'm not going to work any farther that way because that's been worked before. This hadn't been and paid pretty well. This paid great. And so I'm going to try to work in between here today and get down here and see what I can find under this little rocks here. I can't see any bedrock, but I know it's there. I know it's there. So This will either be mostly level, or if it does go down, it'll be a fairly small pit and pretty easy to work. Generally speaking, smaller crevices pay better than bigger crevices because it's not so much about the surface area of the crevice that traps the gold, it's the ripple over the crevice that traps the gold. And so like right here, a rock like this isn't bedrock, it's just setting here, but it's enough to move gold around. When water comes and hits this, it drops down. It wouldn't matter if this was right over a little crevice or over a big crevice, the same basic amount of gold is going to settle here and settle down there. The difference for us is a small crevice contains maybe a 5-gallon bucket of dirt. A big crevice might carry a cubic yard, which is a whole bunch of 5-gallon buckets of dirt. So you can spend all day or 2 days working on those big crevices to get maybe 50%, maybe double the amount of gold you get out of the small crevice, but you could work 10 of the small crevices in the time you work one big one. So if you have the time to work them all, then go ahead and do that. But if you're just trying to hit the high spots, generally small crevices pay better than big ones. So now we're going to work here as we usually do, scraping around with our rake, crucifying, sluicing, getting down to the bottom and cleaning it up. Okay, so now that I've got this hole mostly scraped down into a pile, I'm going to start by sweeping down some of these other smaller piles into there. I've already done about all I can do by hand without the viewer. Now we're just going to take it and sort of sweep like this gently. You don't want to be too aggressive, otherwise the gold might get sucked up into the current, but mostly that's a pretty minor problem. Just sort of use your scoop to sweep it down. And you should see gold going by here, as I do here. Point out some of the larger flakes as they go by here. Now down on this piece here. See, there's several nice ones in that little crevice right there. Don't know if you're close enough to see them or not, but there's a piece there, there, and there. Small ones, but I see others going by as well. Now, for crevices like this, you don't need to get them all completely cleaned out. But the more you can get out with your scoop and your bucket, the less you have to use your sucker upper. And it's a little bit of work to use it, and it doesn't do a good job on the larger stuff. Now see, there's a nice little piece of gold down in there. So we see gold going by, we know we're getting stuff out of here. I just saw one flash at me there, I think. Yeah, see, there's a piece there. So this is the good stuff that we're working in. And we're going to, there's another piece down there. And we're going to work this all out. And we're not trying to get every last little bit out of here. But like I said, we're trying to minimize the amount of use of the sucker upper we use. So now I've worked down to the bottom of this crevice mostly. I haven't gotten really to the bottom of the crevice proper because for that I have to find the other end. And it goes off in there someplace. But I've worked a spot about this wide, but about this thick out. And there's several main smaller crevices in the middle of this. But they've got some dirt in them I haven't been able to scrape out yet. Because just scraping out with your scoop and your bucket doesn't do it. And so what I usually do is I use a scoop to sweep out the most of the dirt into a pile, use that bucket to get that out, and then I come back with a sucker upper later. The reason you don't just use a sucker upper is because the sucker upper is not a dredge. It's not really able to move enough dirt to just start sucking up all the dirt off the bottom. Especially because it picks up the larger rocks and gets clogged. So what we do is we get the worst of the dirt out of the way, then we come back and we move the last little bit out of the sucker upper. And we still get about half of our dirt out, half of our gold out I should say, with the sucker upper. So now take a look at what we're looking at down here. Okay, so this is our crevice. We can cross it like that. You can see I still have a lot of dirt down here I haven't moved, but up on this hill you can see a lot of little small pieces of dirt that need to come out. Now you'll see gold. If this is a good spot, you'll see gold as you go by, like that little spot right there. That's gold. Right down there. Now, come along here with your scoop, and you can't do this in a heavy current. You need a current to be fairly slow, and if you have to, you can make a dam to stop it up. But just take your scoop and just kind of gently wave it down and watch it go. If you're in a place that's got a lot of gold in here, sometimes I'll take a little snifter bottle and just sniff it up as I go, just to make sure it doesn't get lost somewhere down the road. I'm just making a little bit of a wave under there, just to push the dirt down. And the gold is heavy, so it's going to be less likely to get caught in the current than anything else. Still, you want to be a little bit careful. And so now that crevice is pretty well cleaned out. And you saw several pieces of gold go by if you were paying attention. But you want to get all those little clefts out of the rock, all this stuff down here, all swept down into a pile so it's easy to get it out. And the larger crevices you can actually do without a sucker upper if you really do a good job of it by sweeping it down to a smaller and smaller pile and just continually scooping it up. So now that it's down here, I'll come back with my bucket and scoop this up into the bucket, and then we'll do this again later. Over here, this pile is a little bit difficult to sweep out because it's got a little bit of a hole down there. So I had to be a little bit more aggressive. What really important is you get all the big rocks out of there, or anything larger than about a ½ inch in diameter, because that's about what the sucker upper likes to hold. Anything larger than that, you run a risk of it getting snagged. Now these rocks here are stuck in place. We'll come back with a bar and we'll pry them out later, once we get it pretty well cleaned out. That way it's easy to work with. You see several pieces of gold like this one right here, and right over here. A lot of little stuff is going by here, so we know we're going to have some good gold when we get to the bottom of this. So now I've basically swept the sides down, and this hole is already a lot cleaner than most people leave their holes. And as you're going to see in a minute, the hole has a lot of gold left in it. So, we go down here. Alright, so you can see I've got that pile of dirt in the bottom. Now at this point, it's down to the point we really can't scrape out anything else into a bucket. It just slides out as fast as you put it in. So I put the bucket down here, brace it between my feet. Alright. Now, you can scoop up and set in the bucket. The problem is, in heavy currents, you tend to lose a lot of dirt doing this. And so there, you have to do without the camera for a second. Take my hand down here like this, scoop up some dirt, cover it with my hand, pick it up and drop it in the bucket. So it's going to look like this, and drop it in the bucket. You're going to try to move it the least amount of distance that you can, otherwise you're going to risk having some gold drop off and float downstream. So, we're going to continue doing that until we have it as clean as we can get it with this, which is pretty clean, but you'll be amazed at what we get out of there once it's done. So now I've scraped out all the dirt out of here that I'm going to be able to get out of here with my hands and a scoop, and now it's time to use the sucker upper. Meanwhile, since I'm done working this hole for right now, I've carried my buckets of classified sand up to the sluice where my lovely assistant Helga is running it through the sluice. The downside of having a sluice this far away, obviously, is you have to carry a 60 to 80 pound bucket all the way over here to run it. Unfortunately, sluices are kind of fussy and you can't just put one anywhere. And none of the other places over there really said this is a good sluice spot to me, so I'm carrying it for right now. Other times of the year when the water level's higher, I used it down there and over there, but for right now, this is about the only spot I see that is going to work for us. So, when you run that out, I'll show you how to classify the concentrates later. Meanwhile, she's going to finish that, and then we're going to go work in the bottom of this pit and get it really sucked out clean.